Equals. The summer of 1939 lay heavy over London, a pale mist drifting along Whitehall as anxious whispers filled the corridors of power. Europe trembled once more on the brink of war. In a modest study at Chartwell, Winston Churchill sat hunched over his desk, smoke curling from his cigar. The dossier before him bore grim tidings. Hitler's armies had marched into Poland. Churchill had warned of this moment for years, from exile on the political sidelines. They would not listen, he muttered, tracing the rim of his glass. Now, after a decade of isolation, destiny stirred once again. As Big Ben tolled in the distance, the radio crackled with Chamberlain's fateful words, "This country is at war with Germany." In that instant, Churchill rose. The wilderness years were over. The Empire needed him again.
Equals. The black car wound its way through a rain-slicked Downing Street. Churchill leaned forward, his bowler hat resting on his knee. The summons had come swiftly. The Admiralty required his presence. As the car stopped before the wrought iron gates, the familiar facade loomed like a ghost from the past. He had last walked through those doors in 1915, broken by Gallipoli. Now, 24 years later, fate had turned a full circle. Inside, officers saluted sharply as the new First Lord of the Admiralty strode down the hallway. In the operations room, telegraphists paused as an order raced across the naval network. Winston is back. From Scapa Flow to the Mediterranean, signal lamps blinked in salute. The old line had returned to the sea.
Equals. Beneath the Admiralty, deep underground, the hum of typewriters and the rhythmic click of telegraphs filled the dim-lit war room. Blueprints, charts, and dispatches sprawled across long oak tables. Churchill stood among them, his shadow cast across the maps of Europe. Poland was buckling under the German blitzkrieg. Britain's fleet, still untested, prepared to strike. "Gentlemen," he growled, "the Navy must be ready, every ship, every man." His voice cut through the haze of cigarette smoke. Behind his words lay a weight of history. Nelson's ghost, the pride of Trafalgar, Britain's lifeline to survival. He clenched his fist around his cane. "We stand alone for now, but we shall endure." Around him, officers nodded silently, the weight of impending war pressing on every heart. Equals. As the night deepened, Churchill lingered in the Admiralty's grand corridor, portraits of past naval heroes staring down in silent judgment. The creak of his footsteps echoed beneath the vaulted ceilings. He paused before the likeness of Lord Nelson, the one-armed admiral who fell at Trafalgar. "You had your hour," Churchill murmured, his voice rough with memory. "Now I must have mine." Behind the bravado, an unease stirred. The shadow of Gallipoli haunted him, the ghosts of lost soldiers, the smear on his reputation. A junior officer passed, saluting nervously. "We're honored to have you back, sir," he said. Churchill nodded, half smiling. "Let us hope, young man, that honor will not be too dearly bought." Thunder rolled outside, the storm gathering over Europe. Equals. On September 4th, 1939, the first directives left the Admiralty. British warships surged from their harbors, engines thundering beneath cold grey seas. From Scapa Flow to Portsmouth, the Royal Navy braced for conflict unseen since 1918. In the operations room, Churchill scrutinized convoy charts, every line a lifeline. "The German U-boat is our deadliest foe," he told Admiral Pound. "Let them find that Britain's heart beats yet to command the seas." The first reports filtered in. Merchant sinkings off the coast of Ireland. A destroyer lost to a mine. Churchill's eyes darkened, but his voice remained iron. "We must not despair. The Navy is our shield." The age-old duel of sea power and survival had begun anew, and at its helm stood the indomitable Winston.
Equals. Weeks passed in tension. The Atlantic roared with unseen enemies. convoys moved by moonless nights, hunted by the stealthy predators below. Churchill's eyes grew weary under the electric lamps of the Admiralty. Telegrams arrived hourly, ships sunk, crews lost, survivors adrift. Yet there was no grand battle, only the quiet attrition of courage against despair. Late one evening he addressed his naval staff. "It is not in our nature to yield to the unseen. We shall learn their tactics and strike back in kind." Outside, London lay in an uneasy calm, her lamps dimmed, her people anxious. Within the Admiralty, the First Lord smoked in silence. The enemy was invisible, but his resolve was not. The silent war had only just begun.
Spring 1940 brought calamity. Amid snow-clad fjords and cold iron seas, the German invasion of Norway shattered Britain's illusion of readiness. Reports flooded Churchill's desk. Troop transports bombed, destroyers lost, Allied forces retreating. In the cabinet room, tempers flared. "We must strike back or be damned as timid specters," Churchill thundered, slamming his cane. Norway had been his idea, an audacious plan that had faltered in confusion. Yet he shouldered blame with grim defiance. "I accept responsibility," he told Chamberlain quietly, "but not defeat." The echoes of his words filled the room like a final volley. Outside, dark clouds gathered. Norway's fall was a wound to pride, but also a step closer to destiny. The storm within Britain's leadership was reaching its peak.
The collapse of Norway set off tremors in Parliament. On May 10, 1940, as thunder rolled over London, Churchill was called to Buckingham Palace. He stood before King George VI, hat in hand, the weight of empire resting on his shoulders. "I accept it," he said simply, as the monarch offered him the post of Prime Minister. From the shadows of the Admiralty, the bulldog of Britain had ascended once more. Inside the cabinet war rooms, a new directive was pinned: victory at all costs. As bombs rumbled over Europe, Churchill returned to his desk, his old naval chart beside him. The war that had brought him back from exile now demanded everything he had left to give. The wilderness years were truly ended.
As Germany unleashed its blitzkrieg across France, Churchill addressed the nation by radio. The studio was silent, save for the hum of the transmitter. His words rolled out across the empire, measured, unyielding. In ships' cabins and desert outposts, men listened. "We shall fight on the seas, in the air, and in the fields," he declared, his voice resonating with defiance. Even amid chaos, his faith radiated like a beacon. In Canada, Australia, and India, hope stirred again. The isolation that had once defined him was gone. He was now the voice of a united cause. Behind the gravitas lay exhaustion, but he would not falter. The tide of history had called for a leader, and he had answered.
September 1940, 1 year since his return. Britain stood battered but unbroken. The Luftwaffe's bombs fell nightly, yet the nation refused to yield. From his post in the war rooms, Churchill walked to the rooftop above Downing Street, gazing toward the burning east. London was aflame, but so too was his spirit. Behind him, the hum of command continued. Dispatches, messages, lifelines across the seas. The man once scorned, now hailed as savior, drew deeply from his cigar and whispered, "We shall never surrender." His words carried into legend. The old naval order, first sent a year ago, now seemed prophecy made plain. Winston is back, and the world would never be the same again.